I think I want to make a longer video about this, but I want to just kind of start off by saying that out of all the exams on the bones that I give, two bones that people ultimately make mistakes on is the humerus and the femur. Like, they get a lot wrong with these. And I've looked at exams and I've listened to students, and I'm finding that the reason why they're missing so many questions about the humerus and the femur is they're getting them mixed up. They'll say that the humerus is a femur and they'll say that the femur is a humerus. Now, before you go saying, oh, well, they don't look the same, I don't see why anyone would be crazy enough to think that they were the same bone. You got to remember that on the average exam, it's going to look like that. There will be no other bone that looks similar to it for them to compare that bone to another bone. So it's not that. It's just that they're on these exams and they're being shown one bone at a time. And they think that when they're looking at the humerus, they're looking at the femur and vice versa. Also, when people are learning these bones in their lab or whatever, and they're studying them, they come to find out that the humerus and the femur have a lot in common. And that's because both bones articulate into sockets. So this is when you get into what's known as articulations, which is a fancy word for joints. If you're looking at the plants, if you're looking at the way that we put together, I was going to talk about plants in here for a minute, but I said, no, that'll get too much of a tantrum. Let me say it this way. If you look at these bones and you look at the basics behind these bones, they have very similar characteristics. Like, for example, this ball and socket thing here, your humerus has a head, which is shaped like a ball. And then you have a femur, which has a head that's shaped like a ball. And they play the ball and socket game because the femur, the head of the femur, articulates with the acetabulum, which is in the coxal bone or the hip bone. And then the head of the humerus articulates with the glenoid cavity, aka the glenoid fossa, which is the scapula, which is the shoulder. So this ball and socket happens to be the head of the humerus and the glenoid cavity or glenoid fossa on the scapula. So you got two places here where you got ball and sockets. You got the ball and socket joints here. And then if you go down to the other end of this femur and this humerus, you can look at the distal end and you can see where there are all these knobs and these rounded spaces. These knobs and rounded spaces are where other bones articulate. And then you look at the femur and you see these rounded knobs and spaces where other things can articulate. And so it's just a matter of saying who's bigger. Like, the femur obviously looks larger, but then you look at these condyles protruding from the femur. They're huge versus the small little parts of the bone that extend out from the humerus. No, they don't look like something that's going to jump out and grab you and send you, going across country trying to find these things. These little knobs go to smaller bones in the arm. So your radius and your ulna articulate with these small little nodule structures so that you can flex your arm at the elbow. Meanwhile, these condyles down at the other end of the femur, they articulate with your tibia. And your tibia is your shin bone. So needless to say, when you have the kneecap, the patella that sits right here, it's held into place by ligaments. One of those ligaments comes up here, and guess what? The other ligament goes down to the tibia, which the patella literally slides over the smooth surface. So there's lots of little simple ways that you can tell the humerus from the femur. And if the size doesn't get you, look at the heads here, and you can see that the heads fit the functional purpose of these joints. And then the same thing here at the distal end of both bones, you can see the nodules where they will articulate with other bones later. But there should also be some type of structure there that kind of tells you what you're looking at, in the sense of things of purpose, right? So like you've got this line here, which is a much longer line here on the posterior side of the femur, and then on your humerus you have a line, but this line is more on the anterior side of the humerus of this bone. All right. Like I said, there are a lot of similarities to this bone, but you have to look at those similarities as being different and then knowing what articulates with it. Like, I kept babbling about the distal end of the humerus. Well, you've got these little small nodules here, and that's because you have two different bones in your forearm that attach there. Versus this guy, the tibia is the only bone that's articulating with these two condyles. So they're shaped as such. They're shaped like there's one major bone that's going to articulate down here at the end and make things happy. So that's all we have time for right now. We'll do a more detailed breakdown of the details of both of these bones at a later date. If you liked what you saw today, please hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe and share this with someone else. If you have questions about the bones or things that you want to see done on this channel, make sure that you leave a comment and below. And as always, we look forward to seeing you next time.